I'm gonna put the link to Boruto chapter 24 in the pinned comment of this video. I'm saying this because I know that quite a few of you haven't read the chapter because it got released super early. So without further ado, let's get into Boruto chapter 24 review. I just want to give a quick little shout out to my man Eric. He does colored Boruto manga panels. I'm gonna have the link to his Instagram in the description of this video. You guys should really follow him because he helped me with this thumbnail, and overall the guy does a lot of great pictures. So yeah, you should definitely follow Eric. Let me give you my general opinion on this chapter before I start dissecting anything about it. So it was out of this world. It was amazing. It was brilliant. I cannot describe how good this chapter really was. And in case you disagree with me, I suggest staying until the end of this video. So first of all, I know this might be a bit surprising, but I want to mention Garo and Delta. When I was reading the chapter for the first time, I was super excited because I was waiting for this chapter for like hours. And, I literally blitzed through it. I literally did a fucking flying Raijin and read it in a couple of minutes. But then I went and reread the chapter even a couple of times. And I noticed something that I originally didn't notice. So why am I mentioning Garo and Delta? Well, at the start of the chapter, when Delta is eating, quote-unquote eating with Jigen, you can clearly see that there's a plate in front of Jigen, and obviously he's drinking some wine, and there's not a plate in front of Delta. And at the start of the chapter, Delta, let me just go to the page. At the start of the chapter, Delta says something very interesting. She says, "Isn't it tasty, Jigen? The meal went down my throat quite well." Now, considering the fact that I'm a male and that, Delta is a female, I had some dirty thoughts here when she said the meal went down my throat quite well, and I had a good laugh. But then I was like, hold on for a second. This is literally the first line of the chapter. There has to be some meaning to it. Basically, there's something wrong with Delta, with her sense of taste or something like that. Maybe she can't even eat, and let me explain it. As I already said, there wasn't a plate in front of Delta. Why am I saying this? Well, you can make an argument that she already ate before and then she finished. But no, as I said, there was not a plate there. And what Jigen says is very interesting. He says, "What do you mean, Delta? Are you still getting worried about your weight? Even if you were worried about that, I'd always say that you are beautiful." Many people might interpret this as if he has some emotions for her, but realistically this was very, very sarcastic. And let me explain. She says, "Don't make such dull jokes. If I eat anything after that, it won't have any taste to it." When she says anything after that, she's referring to a certain event that happened in her life. And again, you could say she ate before this, but I already told you there isn't a plate on her side of the table. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, if she already ate something, why wouldn't anything else have taste to it? It doesn't make sense. And you might be wondering, why did I mention Garo? Well, first of all, Garo was the outer that was, escorting her. And when I googled the meaning of Garo's name, this is what I found. Hungry or hungry wolf. Now, when you're hungry, right, you need to eat it, right? You need to swallow the food, right? And obviously it was revealed in this chapter that Garo doesn't have a jaw. Kawaki literally destroyed it, so I'm assuming that he can't properly eat. And then you have Delta, and there's something going on with her sense of taste, with her not being able to, eat or something like that, or maybe, I don't know. But there's something going on with Delta and Garo when it comes to eating. With Garo, it's pretty much obvious he doesn't have a jaw, but with Delta, it's a bit more deep than that. And this could be one of the reasons why she's so, I don't want to say frustrated, but she's so quote-unquote nervous all the time. Obviously, the vessel still isn't in Kara's possession, so she might be nervous because of that. But I feel like when we get her backstory, everything is gonna make 100% sense. I'm gonna repeat it once again, and I know I already said it multiple times, but I just want to say it once again. There wasn't a plate in front of her, and when she said after that, she was probably referring to something that happened to her. And you have the parallel between her and Garo, because Garo means hungry wolf, and obviously he can't eat because he doesn't have a jaw, or at least he can't eat proper food. So just keep that in mind. There has to be something going on here with Delta and eating and food and stuff like that. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's crazy how some things on first sight seem like they're, like, I guess, irrelevant or something like that. I already told you I was laughing my ass off at the start of the chapter when Delta was describing the meal, and obviously she didn't eat. That was all sarcasm, obviously, but it's just crazy. Anyway, when she kicked that table and destroyed it, Jigen literally recreated the table. And somebody on my Twitter page theorized that he used wood style, but guys, he literally recreated wine, the plate, everything. The dude literally rewrote reality, and I'm definitely gonna talk about this in a separate video. This is a godlike ability. It's unbelievable. You know what the worst thing is? I mean, not the worst thing. I don't know why I use that phrase, but when he recreates the table, I believe it's page 8, depending on whether the version where you read has the colored panel or not. But around page 8, you can see the new table, and behind it is the destroyed table and the wine. And he didn't use that old table to fix it. He literally created a new one. He rewrote reality. This is blowing my mind. Anyway, Delta and Jigen, they were mentioning Kashin Koji in this chapter, and basically Delta even asks Jigen for permission to go to see what's going on with Kashin Koji, the vessel and all that. And Jigen says that she can go and she can tell him if there's something wrong or something like that. It seems like Jigen really values he really values Kashin Koji. And yeah. Now, the way this chapter started, like the first 10 pages with Jigen and Delta, it's crazy because the perspective is completely changed. We're seeing everything from the perspective of the quote-unquote villains of the series. It's not Boruto, Sarada, Mitsuki, and Konohamaru. It's a different perspective, different characters having spotlight. And that's a surprising factor that I really enjoyed in this chapter. This chapter was different. It had a different vibe to it, and I'm going to explain furthermore why it was great. Obviously, Delta and Jigen were discussing about the vessel, and at the end of their conversation, Delta leaves, and there's a panel on page 10, I believe, of Jigen thinking about something. Now, at this point, you can assume that he's either thinking about Delta or the vessel or something like that, but it all makes sense afterwards. We switched to the scene with Kawaki and Team 7, and both Boruto and Kawaki feel this pain in their palms, which furthermore shows how connected they are. And then you see Kawaki thinking about his childhood and about Jigen, which kind of confirms that Jigen was thinking about Kawaki or the vessel at that point, which is very symbolic. It shows that they're connected, both Jigen and Kawaki. And when it comes to the writing of that certain, scene, or I should say those two scenes, Jigen thinking about something, and then you see Kawaki thinking about him. It's written so well, and me as a reader, I really appreciate this. At the start of the video, I told you that I had reread this chapter a couple of times. When I read it for the first time, I was, blitzing through it. And when I read it for the second time, I saw everything that I had to see for this review. The reason why I kept rereading the chapter was because I was just enjoying it. And this little parallel or symbolism even, between Jigen and Kawaki. It was one of the main reasons why I kept rereading this chapter and why it was so enjoyable. Kawaki's childhood. By the way, before I get into anything, his father seriously reminds me of Shojoji. I'm not even joking. I don't think Shojoji is his dad, but they were really, really similar. And anyway, we see that Jigen was basically talking with Kawaki's father. He basically bought Kawaki from him. And, Kawaki's father says he's empty, not even any redeeming qualities except for becoming my punching bag. This is a very dark theme that the Boruto writers are implementing. Many characters in Naruto had tragic childhoods. And, often you would see a kid losing their loved ones. And this necessarily isn't the case here. I mean, it might be. We don't know the full backstory of, Kawaki. We know nothing about his mom, right? But this is something different. He was tortured physically. This is very, very deep. And it's one of the many seinen elements that I'm noticing in the Boruto manga. And it's something that I'm really, really enjoying. You see Kawaki on the ground, basically. And, Jigen basically buys Kawaki, so to say. And Kawaki's father tells Jigen, or he asks him, are you God or something? Because he was surprised by the fact that Jigen had so much money. And this is clearly some type of foreshadowing that Jigen is either some celestial being or he has godlike abilities, which was shown in this chapter because the dude literally rewrote the reality. And as I said, I'm going to create a separate video about that. I'm even thinking about creating a separate video talking about the seinen elements I'm seeing in the Boruto manga and, comparing the tone of the earlier parts of the series, for specifically first 50 episodes of the anime and now everything that's going on in the manga. Like the shift of the tone, it's so satisfying. It's written so well. Okay. Anyway, Jigen tells Kawaki, up until now you've only had terrible, bitter emotions, but that's the end of it all. I took over your custody, blah, 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 and he tells him I'm your father, Kawaki. Now, let's be honest, guys. I'm pretty sure, well, I could be wrong, but you felt something warm there in that panel. But it could all be just sarcasm and it could be something completely else because I hope that Jigen actually cares for Kawaki. I genuinely do. But why is he referring to him as Vessel and not Kawaki in this chapter? Maybe, because obviously Kawaki was tortured, right? He bought him and he probably saved him from torturing, but this doesn't mean that there's anything more deep than that, despite the fact that he said, I am your father. Maybe, who knows what happened between them? Why am I... okay, I'm completely losing my words. The point I'm trying to make is, when I saw that panel, I am your father, I was kind of satisfied and I felt a bond, or I should say I hoped that there's a bond between them, a close bond. We still don't know if there is one or not, but due to the fact that, Jigen was most likely sarcastic at the start of this chapter, and due to the fact that he refers to Kawaki as Vessel and, he doesn't use his real name, kind of shows that he doesn't respect Kawaki. Maybe he's just referring to him as Vessel because he doesn't want other Kara members to know that he potentially has some feelings for Kawaki. There are so many possibilities. Another thing about this chapter, it introduced so many mysteries, so many questions. I mean, many chapters did that in the last couple of months, but this chapter did it on a whole new level. There was this mysterious aura around it throughout, the chapter. Because, the Kara members, they seem to be unique. They seem to have their own goals. I mean, look at Kashi Koji. He literally left Boruto and the others when he saw them, despite the fact that he saw that Boruto has the karma or whatever. I don't even know what's fucking going on in this manga, to be honest, at this point. But yeah, by the way, the panel where Jigen says, I am your father, Kawaki, beautiful. Beautiful. That's all I can say. And obviously Kawaki wakes up, and this is huge. Kawaki wakes up, he says, don't touch me. And the dude literally loses it. He screams. I can imagine, hearing the sound of Kawaki screaming, "Don't touch me" in the anime. I just can't wait to see it. It's gonna be epic. And on page, I believe, yeah, 22 of the chapter that I'm having right here, and the one that's in the pinned comment, you kind of see Kawaki in the air, and there's something around him. Obviously, manga is in black and white, so we don't know if this is chakra, if this is some type of aura. We don't know the color of it, but there's just something messed up going on around Kawaki, right? And he lands, and we get some nice panels, and he's like, "Who are you assholes? Are you pursuers from Kara?" Now, in the chapter that I read, Kawaki said assholes quite a few times. I'm sure that in the official translation, this is probably going to be replaced with, I don't know, jerk, idiot, or something like that. Or maybe he's sometimes going to say jerk or sometimes idiot. Doesn't really matter, but assholes, it was like really, really hardcore. But this immediately shows that Kawaki fears the world. Because obviously he was tortured by his father. You could say, well, he was tortured, then he was saved by Jigen, and what's the big deal right now? Later on in the chapter, we see that everybody refers to him as this vessel and as this weapon. Excuse me. They don't treat him as a human, so it all kind of makes sense. And I'm really, really happy about Kawaki's introduction. And anyway, he thought that, Team 7 were the pursuers from the Kara, right? He thought that. And he was wrong. They weren't that. But when Konohamaru explained everything, he was like, "We're gonna have to force you to come with us." And Kawaki's like, "I get it already. Seems like you want to die," which really shows that this man went through some hard shit. Kind of reminds me. Well, I don't want to say reminds me of Sasuke, but he's definitely giving me some Sasuke vibes there. And then Boruto mentions. Well, he was like, "Wait, Dattebasa, you know about this, right? You have it on your left hand too, right?" And then he shows the Karma seal. And then we see, Delta freaking out with Kashin Koji. I mean, Kashin Koji was pretty calm because he was freaking out in the 23rd chapter when he saw it, right? And anyway, Kawaki thought, he was like, "Quit screwing around, as I thought they're pursuers from Kara." But before we continue with, Kawaki and all that, I just want to mention this because this happened. In the meantime, Delta arrives next to Kashin Koji, right? And we can see that they have a pretty strange relationship. She says, "It's always that same expression whenever I see you, Koji, seeming so annoyed. That's rude of you." And my man, Kashin Koji, the most savage man alive, says, "Nice to see you, Delta, though you weren't invited." This dude is a straight up savage. I'm enjoying Kashin Koji. I can't wait to see his backstory, his motives, and stuff like that. All these characters have so much potential to be deep. Even Delta with the entire thing of eating, not being able to sense the taste of food or whatever. Like, anyway, that I thought that was hilarious, right? And at that point where they were interacting, it was mentioned that Garo was brought along, and Kashin Koji refers to him as simple-minded, and obviously Garo is an outer member of the Kara, which is interesting. Another member was introduced in this chapter. So let's move on with let's continue with the whole interactions between Kawaki and Team 7. Let me just read you this. Everybody's trying to say, "Calm down, Kawaki," but then he's like, "I don't care about what you assholes are or whatever your circumstances may be. If you want to come for me, just come already. I'll turn the tables right back against you." He's so protective. It's so obvious because he's being treated like shit from everybody. And this kind of confuses me. If he at least had one person having his back, being potentially Jigen, I feel like he would be a bit different. And this kind of makes me believe that it's possible that even Jigen is not treating him too well. Or maybe he's having mixed thoughts. Maybe Jigen isn't showing him his true self. Maybe he's just, playing this persona as the leader of the Kara, referring to Kawaki as his vessel, right? And, not using his name. Obviously, we don't know their personal interactions, but as I said, just this sentence, it feels like he's alone in this world. And, many characters would be crushed, because of backstories like this, and because of the fact that they're potentially looked at just as a tool. But Kawaki, obviously, he's definitely broke mentally as well, but he doesn't show it. Instead, he's shouting all the time, using words such as asshole all the time. He's very protective, he's very aggressive, and I'm just enjoying his character introduction so much. The chapter 24 marks the beginning of the Kawaki Arc. It was confirmed, and I even did a separate video about it because Organic Dinosaur translated everything. And anyway, this is the Kawaki Arc, which will focus on him. And as Kawaki was preparing to fight them, this guy comes. The guy, what was his name? Garo, right? And he's like, allow me to recover you, the precious vessel. And this is exactly what I'm saying. They don't even refer to him, they refer to him as a fucking vessel. They don't use his name. And the dude's a fucking kid. I personally think that he is 12, just like Boruto. Some people think that he's older. I personally think he's 12. But yeah, anyway. I'm just looking at this top left panel. You're an asshole, Garo. That was the thing that Kawaki said. And although it's repetitive dialogue from Kawaki so far, there's a reason for it. And the thing is, another brilliant thing about this chapter is that not the full backstory of Kawaki was shown. Well, you could say, how do you know this? Just trust me, there's definitely more to it. But they're probably going to slowly build onto it. I was discussing with a couple of people, because a couple of people were saying that this chapter was average, which completely blew my mind, because this chapter is magnificent. But anyway, multiple people were discussing about Kawaki's backstory, right? And then somebody was like, imagine getting Itachi's backstory straight away. Some things have to be kept as mysteries, and then they're gonna be even more interesting later on. Anyway, Garo appears here. He says, seems like old man Ao failed. What a disgrace to the outers. And Delta's reaction, that idiot, he keeps blabbering nonstop. Anyway, Kawaki and Gaara have a past, because he literally broke his jaw, right? And at one point, Kawaki tells him, assholes like you shouldn't keep treating me as an object, you pig. He clearly shows that he's frustrated about it. But what I like about him is that he's showing, obviously, some type of persona, because he's definitely broke inside. But he just gives off this badass vibe all the time, which is something that's very difficult to do. And I'm just fucking loving Kawaki and his introduction so far and his backstory. Anyway, they start fighting, and obviously this Garo guy is using, I guess, some ninja tech. And anyway, Kawaki dodges, and Mitsuki even says he's fast. Mitsuki's super strong, and when Mitsuki says he's fast, when you see Mitsuki being surprised, you know that somebody's fast. And then Kawaki does something that completely blew my mind. Guys, it is very possible that Kawaki is from Jugo's clan, because this literally looks like Jugo's ability. And I'm also gonna mention that in a separate video, because this video is already too fucking long. And it will make sense why Jigen wanted to buy Kawaki. It was because of the fact that he's from the Jugo clan. Of course, this is all a theory, but it makes sense. Just look at page 40. What Kawaki does is literally pretty much the same thing that Jugo used to do. And his clan's ability with the senjutsu, the sage transformation, it was fucked up. I'm probably gonna explain it in a separate video, but it makes sense. It makes sense, because otherwise why would Jigen just randomly buy this tortured kid? And I'm here at the last panel. Garo mentions that Kawaki's weakened, and he's like, don't make me laugh, my handicap is perfect for fighting an asshole like you. Overall, this chapter had many mysteries introduced into it, which is something that we are seeing throughout the last couple of Boruto chapters and throughout the Boruto manga in general. So I'm not gonna praise this chapter too much just because of that, but just this shift in perspective, the fact that we saw a bunch of things from the Kara's point of view, it was just enjoyable to watch, or I should say to read. Now the thing is, I'm gonna give the rating to this chapter. I know that most of you think that I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10. I'm gonna give it 9.5, and no, I'm not nitpicking. Let me just explain why. First of all, when you review any series on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, sometimes you come across chapters or episodes like this where it's kind of fucked up to give a rating, because you had so many mysteries introduced, and depending on how these backstories get expanded upon, and depending on how these characters get developed, this could be super good for the series. But if the writers fuck it up in the future, then this chapter is not necessarily gonna be a failure, but it just won't hold up, right? So the reason why I'm not giving it a 10 is because I can't know if it was a perfect chapter or not. In my eyes, everything was great about it, right? As I said, the symbolism with Jigen and Kawaki, the amount of information we got about Kawaki, which was super important, and plus there's room for more. The shift of the perspective, I already mentioned it multiple times. I promise I'm gonna stop. The beautiful artwork from Kishimoto, from Ikemoto, excuse me. And, again, a solid cliffhanger at the end. But as I said, the future of the series will determine how great or how bad this chapter was. But the way that the way that the Boruto manga is written, it's out of this world, guys. I can't describe how much potential this manga has. And another argument that could kind of support the rating that I'm giving to this episode is that everything was very sudden. This isn't necessarily bad, but how do I put it into words? Because I'm looking at this chapter from an objective point of view, obviously. If I was just looking at it straight subjectively, I would give it 10 out of 10. Obviously, every review needs to be subjective, at least by some margin, because otherwise, what will be the point, right? Of multiple people giving different reviews. But objectively, maybe this was too sudden. Maybe this was, obviously it came out of nowhere. The fact that everything shifted so much in this chapter. I don't want to say the chapter feels empty, but this chapter literally screams, I need chapter 25 or even more chapters to judge, which is why I'm giving it 9.5. So, yeah. I know I made the rating for this chapter super complicated. I know it, but just bear with me. 9.5, and this might just be my favorite Boruto chapter so far of the series. So that was your boy Hokage. Twitter and Discord links are in the description below. If you're new to this channel and if you're into Boruto, consider subscribing. Let me know what you think about this chapter in the comment section of this video, because I'm gonna read all the comments. Stay tuned for my other Boruto videos that I'm going to make in the near future that I mentioned in this video already. That was your boy Hokage, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.